The atmosphere was electric. Conor McGregor, the infamous former dual-weight UFC champion, sat across from the schmo, his presence commanding attention even through the digital lens of the interview. As always, McGregor's words were razor-sharp, delivered with the brash confidence that had become his trademark. But this time, something was different. There was a palpable sense of frustration beneath his bravado, an edge to his tone that hinted at something deeper. What McGregor was about to say would reverberate across the world of combat sports, leaving fans, pundits, and fighters alike on edge. The conversation, as always with McGregor, quickly veered into uncharted territory. The topic of the moment was a fight that had once seemed like an inevitability, a clash of two titans that could transcend sports, McGregor versus Logan Paul. It was the talk of the town, with reports swirling for months about a $500 million showdown between the brash Irishman and the YouTube star turned WWE sensation. Speculation ran wild, and the rumors were tantalizing. McGregor, the man who had reshaped the world of MMA, stepping into the boxing ring against Logan Paul, an internet personality with a knack for making headlines and a surprising level of success in the ring. The figures being thrown around were mind-boggling, $250 million each for McGregor and Paul. It was the kind of money that could change lives, reshape careers, and alter the landscape of combat sports forever. The idea of McGregor, already a global superstar, crossing over to boxing to take on someone like Paul was a dream for promoters. The hype surrounding the potential event was undeniable. Fans of both MMA and boxing alike were salivating at the thought of the spectacle, each imagining the chaos, the drama, and the inevitable build-up that would come with such a monumental showdown. But just as quickly as the rumors began to take root, they were crushed under the weight of an unexpected reality. McGregor's tone was blunt when he revealed the truth. "The UFC just aren't into it," he said, his voice carrying a no-nonsense finality that left no room for doubt. The idea, despite its monumental financial potential, had been shot down by the very organization that McGregor had once helped build into the powerhouse it was today. The UFC, despite the opportunity to make history and rake in unimaginable profits, had decided it wasn't interested. The offer, McGregor confirmed, had even been in writing. But that was not enough to sway the UFC brass. The fight was dead before it had even truly begun. It was a harsh blow to McGregor, who had been riding high on the excitement surrounding the possibility of facing Paul. Both fighters had their own unique brand of star power, their own legions of fans, and the chemistry between the two could have made for a spectacle unlike anything the world had seen before. Yet, in the end, it wasn't enough. The UFC's decision felt like a betrayal to McGregor, a reminder that even with all his star power, the organization still held the cards. And for McGregor, that wasn't something he was willing to accept. As the conversation continued, McGregor's frustration became more apparent. He couldn't understand why the UFC would pass on such an opportunity. He had seen it as a no-brainer, a chance to make money, break records, and create something that would live on in the annals of combat sports history. It was the perfect storm. Both McGregor and Paul were under the TKO banner, a company that had seen its stock prices soar thanks to its involvement in both the UFC and WWE. India was a booming market, and the idea of staging a colossal event there seemed like a golden opportunity. To make the glorified spar happen, McGregor explained with a sarcastic chuckle, his words dripping with irony. He wasn't wrong. While the fight between McGregor and Paul might not have been a technical masterpiece, it would have been a spectacle. It would have been entertainment at its finest, with the larger-than-life personas of both men taking center stage. But the UFC wasn't interested in that. They weren't interested in the money. They weren't interested in the spectacle. All that mattered was the bottom line, and that wasn't something McGregor had the patience for. "I'm not sure what WWE's interest in it was," McGregor continued, his tone suggesting that he didn't much care about their stance either. It was clear that his frustrations weren't just with the UFC. It was the entire system, the constant waiting game that had kept him sidelined since his last fight in July 2021, a brutal night when McGregor broke his leg in a trilogy bout with Dustin Poirier. The injury had kept him out of the octagon, and progress on his return had been slow at best. The idea of crossing over into boxing with Logan Paul had been a breath of fresh air, a chance for McGregor to make his own path, away from the bureaucracy of the UFC. But now, with that opportunity slipping through his fingers, McGregor was once again at a crossroads. It was a moment of reckoning for McGregor, and he wasn't ready to wait any longer. He wasn't going to sit around and let the UFC dictate the course of his career. One of these days you'll just hear my music come onto this stage in bare-knuckle fighting championship, McGregor said with a sly grin, his eyes gleaming with mischief. And I'll have my fists wrapped with no gloves for a fight, out of nowhere. The words hung in the air, almost like a dare. It was classic McGregor, bold, provocative, and unapologetically unpredictable. If the UFC wasn't going to give him what he wanted, then he would take matters into his own hands. He didn't need the hype, the build-up, or the promotion. All he needed was the fight. The idea of McGregor stepping into a bare-knuckle fight was enough to send shockwaves through the combat sports world. It was a move that would leave fans reeling, unsure of what to make of it. McGregor was always one to defy expectations, to break the mold. And if the UFC wasn't going to play along, then he would make his own rules. That's for P, he quipped, brushing aside any concerns about legal issues or contracts. For McGregor, it wasn't about the red tape, it was about the fight, the thrill, and the possibility of doing things on his own terms. But McGregor wasn't done there. The conversation soon shifted to the growing phenomenon of influencer boxing, a trend that had taken the world by storm. Social media stars turned boxers like Logan Paul, Jake Paul, and KSI were raking in millions, drawing massive crowds and breaking records with their events. And McGregor, ever the opportunist, was eager to get in on the action. I'm more inclined now for this influencer FING, whatever you call it, because it's astronomical money, McGregor said, his voice full of excitement. The potential for big money was undeniable. McGregor was no fool. He knew that the influencer boxing world had become a cash cow, and if there was one thing McGregor knew how to do, it was make money. The Paul brothers, along with KSI, had created a new avenue for boxing, one that attracted both fans of traditional combat sports and casual viewers who were drawn in by the spectacle of it all. I like the three of these guys and then all these other ones that are tussling around, McGregor continued, clearly intrigued by the growing list of social media stars who were looking to get into the ring. So it's an interesting little side pocket branch, we'll call it. Stuff it down me sock and out I go. McGregor wasn't just talking about the possibility of fighting these men, he was already imagining the money he could make. The influencer boxing world was still in its early stages, but McGregor could already see the vast potential for success. And with his star power, he knew he could be the biggest name in the game. The idea of McGregor pivoting to influencer boxing wasn't far-fetched. With the rise of social media and the blurred lines between celebrity and athlete, McGregor could easily transition into this new realm. The question was no longer whether he could do it, but rather, how much he could make in the process. For McGregor, the answer seemed clear. If the UFC wasn't willing to give him what he wanted, then he would turn to a different stage entirely, one where the spotlight was brighter, the money was bigger, and the rules were his to define. As the interview came to a close, McGregor once again teased the possibility of a career change, hinting that he might soon pivot away from MMA altogether if the opportunities in influencer boxing proved too lucrative to ignore. The world of combat sports was changing, and McGregor, ever the showman, was more than ready to adapt. Whatever path he chose, one thing was certain: the world would be watching. Now, with McGregor's career hanging in the balance, the question remained, would he fight on his own terms, or would the UFC find a way to reel him back in? The story was far from over. But one thing was for sure: whatever came next, it was bound to be explosive.